you too can say something about the others. We don't want you. We like to see the interaction of thought, of thinking. So we're not just wanting just the people that are in red, the names there. We're hoping that you will, Jeb, and come in whenever you have a thought. Come on in so we can have a lot of interaction. That makes sense? Okay.
Okay, Pastor Van just joined us. Okay.
Looks like we're on Facebook already, so there may be some people seeing what we're doing here right now.
Yeah.
Just getting started.
I just set it up because it takes a couple of minutes and I hate to do that right at 7 because we've got a lot of people. So I want to make sure we're jumping right in.
So we might tell the people that are on, but we haven't quite started yet, but we're glad they're there and they can listen to. We've got no secrets that we're sharing here. We're just waiting for a few more people to join this wonderful. We really have a great panel today. It's an exciting panel. It's diverse and it's got women and men. We didn't have enough women, but we've now got some women on as well. And this is going to be a great hour. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Tony, I like your background. Where can I get a background like that?
I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, I don't know. Come and visit me.
I have to go to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Frida, is that your grandson?
Yes, they just came over.
Adorable.
Say hi. Say hi.
What's your name? You're alive.
We call him Trey. He's Eric the Third.
Eric the Third. Welcome.
Reverend Kirkendall is on, but we don't have his picture yet. We don't have his face.
I don't see his picture. No, it looks like he's.
There you
go. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, good. Well,
can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you fine.
Yes.
Great. Let me show you looking blessed and Facebook. Hey man, look like it's been a while. Hey, brother Eric, I heard you, man. How you doing?
You talking to Bill?
No, I see the big one there. I think she said his name was Eric. Is that Eric or Bill?
Yes, this little guy here. He's Eric the Third.
He's Eric the Third. I was asking brother Eric, how was he doing?
You doing okay?
That's family love there.
Yes,
he's family love.
He's 18 months old, so he.
So Frida, I grew up in that kind of household.
Yes. Came to see Gigi.
Yeah. So
5 minutes.
So
we are still waiting on Mother Dawn and Naeem. Do you have Naeem's contact, Sam?
I mean, whether I have his. See, I should check and see if I do.
Thank you. Don't snatch.
I've got his.
Surrender, what are you live on? What page are you? No, which page?
Oh, it's on the Global Faith in Action page.
I just have his email address.
I have his phone, Sam. I'm calling him now.
Would you call him right now? That'd be great.
Thank you.
I must have it somewhere, but it doesn't show up here. So, okay, and then we're waiting for who else?
Mother
Dawn. I just texted Chelsea. I know Chelsea said she'd be watching, so hopefully she's getting my text. I don't have Mother Dawn's contact.
Assalamu alaikum, Naeem. This is Deborah Dirks, and the panel on Racism Begins at Home is starting, and we didn't see you, so I was calling to make sure you were aware and would join us.
Inshallah, give me a call when you can. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And as you heard, I left a message, so that's about the best we can do.
Great.
We've got about 2 minutes. So hopefully they'll jump on soon.
I have a number for Dawn, but it's just a work number. I don't think it's her cell number.
Do we want to try that? Bless you.
What? Me, I was supposed to go, but picked her up.
Well, we're gonna have, if Mother Dawn Frankfurt and Naeem are not there, question number 4 is going to be answered by someone else because they're both those names are in the same question. So,
I left a message for her.
Thank you.
okay, you all might take a look at question 4 so that you're prepared as somebody to get it started if neither one of them show. Else we're okay. But look at question number 4. You probably have that, don't you, with you somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so we don't have any problem there, because it is a good question. It's a question we need to respond to.
It's 7 o'clock. Do we want to start?
We're going to start.
Yeah.
Okay, we are beginning. Welcome to our 4th panel discussion, sponsored by Global Faith in Action and the Beyond Tolerance Movement. And I'm Sam Meiskens, host of this very exciting yet extremely important dialogue. Today's dialogue theme is Racism Begins at Home. Think about that theme for a moment. Does racism begin at home? Well, we have a great panel tonight, and that is what we will be discussing tonight. Let me introduce them to you. You will be impressed. We have a very diverse panel tonight. They will raise their hands when I call their name right now. First of all, Rabbi Michael Davis. Rabbi is the rabbi of Congregation Emmanuel. And then I don't think Naeem has shown up yet, right?
Right.
No.
Okay. We'll go to Sister Deborah Dirk. You know, she is the author, and she's an author, a community organizer, an educator, and within the Muslim community. And then there's Reverend Carl Kirkendall. He is the pastor of Bethany Baptist Church and president of the Greater Wichita Ministerial League. And then there's Dr. William Van and his wife, Dr. Michelle Van, and they are pastors, ministers of the Isis Christian Center. And then there's Serinda Moore. She's the executive director of Alternative Gifts International. She also makes this Zoom system all work together. And then there's a new one that I just got to know tonight, Frida Mitchell. She's was in the military for a while. She's was with our school district for 20 years. She's the single mother of 4 and a grandmother of 2. And has anyone else joined us?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so then I want to introduce the last one that I haven't introduced yet, I think. Is there just one of you there that have not been introduced, and that's Tony?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Tony is the artist in residence at Heston College. But Tony you need to know more about Tony. Tony is a promoter of peace and goodwill around the world. Tony is an international acclaimed baritone singer. He uses all styles of music to bring people together in places of conflict. While in Ethiopia, he was able to bring together Christians and Muslims and share the concert stage together. He went to Bosnia to bring together the various ethnic and religious groups. He's traveled to the Ukraine and Russia and People's of Republic of China, and even traveled with me to Haiti. And when we were in Haiti, he invited all those Haitian musicians to come and join him in a concert. And wow, was it a concert. It was a wonderful black-faced bunch of people doing all kinds of things, dancing in the aisles and all, because it was just so much fun. So Tony is a peacemaker and a promoter of justice. So we're glad you're with us tonight. And but before you have someone joining? Okay. Well, then before I begin to ask questions, I'm going to ask Tony. He's got just a gorgeous, wonderful voice, to give us a song that might get us thinking.
Thank you, Sam. Here it goes. Let us break bread together on our knees. Let us break bread together on our knees. When I fall on my knees, with my face to the rising sun, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Let us drink wine together on our knees. Let us drink wine together on our knees. When I fall on my knees, with my face to the rising sun, oh Lord, have mercy on me. Let us praise God together on our knees. Let us praise God together on our knees. When I fall down on my knees, with my face to the rising sun, oh Lord, have mercy on me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we'll begin with the first question, which really is a question that any of you and all of you can respond to. There's no one person's name with it. But you're going to start with a quote from an Irish Times. Parents are the most influential figures in a child's life. And whatever we do or think, they will reproduce one day, the good, but also the bad. So how does this quote apply to your upbringings? Would any of you like to share a story about how your parents or an adult who raised you engaged you in healthy or not healthy discussions about race and ethnic differences? Anyone of you want to
I
start?
won't necessarily share a story about myself per se, but as a history teacher in 8th grade, part of what I would have conversations with my students about is the fact that I was preparing them as 8th graders in 4 years to be adults. so that they could make decisions on their own. And so one of the things that I would not allow to have happen is, I don't care what your mama says, I don't care what your grandma says, I don't care what what anybody else has to say. I want you to come to this class with critical thinking and think about and tell me why you believe what it is you believe. So my last couple of years in the classroom was in the last election. So our last election period. And so there were all of these things that were coming up, all of the things that the president was saying. The president that we have now was a candidate at that time. And so all of the things that he was saying, students would come and part of their assignment was to go and hear the news, listen to the news, read the newspaper, find out what is being said. And so we would have these discussions. We would have discussions about Ferguson. We would have discussions about things that were happening in the world. And so it was a critical time that you could tell. I could tell when it was their thought, and I could tell when it was the thought that their parents had and that they had adopted. And so if you're going to adopt it, I need you to understand why. I need you to be able to explain to me why you believe what it is you believe. And if you can't, then that's not something that you can share in this room. And so it became a very critical thing that if you can't explain why you believe what you believe, I don't want to hear it. And so for me, that was a big thing. And it made a lot of difference in the conversations that we had and how we interacted around race and things of that nature.
Thanks, Michelle. And I really do think that a lot of us are who we are today because of parents or grandparents or someone in our lives that have caused us to think in certain ways. I can just give you a quick little thing in my own life. One day, there was when I was very young, we were in a small community, and my mom would always be feeding the people who came off the train. And so I said one day to her, how do they know to come to our house? And she said, well, look up in the tree. You see what's up in the tree? It says, everyone is welcome here.
Oh, wow.
There was no sign up there. But that's what that's what she wanted me to know. That we were someone who should be welcoming everyone. Anybody else got a story?
Yeah, I want to share, and I think I've mentioned this to you, Sam, before. I grew up in
Let's see,
Lost
we're
her.
not getting you coming through.
England, and our community was. Can you hear me now?
I just
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, as I don't know if you heard me, but I grew up in Northern England, and the row of towns we lived on, our neighbors were from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different faith traditions. We had a Buddhist family, we had a Muslim family, a Catholic family, a Sikh family, which was our family, and one that belonged to the Church of England, and then I think a Hindu family, living on one terrace row of homes. And we were like family. So our door was always open to, people of different backgrounds, and, they borrowed from us, we borrowed from them. So that's what I grew up. I think that's really shaped kind of how I think about the world in general, and certainly has paved, my path in working in, being involved in interfaith work and the work we do today. So I really believe that shaped a lot of how I think today.
I am sort of on the opposite end of things. I grew up in a very small farming community, Moundridge, Kansas. It is Swiss German Mennonite, and in the 1950s, very isolated yet. And growing up there and seeing how things were, of course, affected how I viewed the world. I did not know anyone who wasn't a German Mennonite. I mean, there was no one else around to know. It was just, what kind of Mennonite are you? Holdeman Amish, General Conference, that was the distinguisher. But I also grew up with something that kind of turns racism or ethnic prejudice on its ear. My father, Carl J. Stuckey, did not believe that the government had the right to draft him during World War II. And so he refused to send in his draft card. As a result, he was sentenced to 2 years in jail. He served 9 months and got out on good conduct. But we don't normally, when we think of ethnic prejudice, today we don't think about Germans being on the receiving end of that, yet during World War II, Germans very definitely were, especially people who spoke German, were of straight German background, and who lived in closed-in communities. He was going to Bethel College at that time, which, you know, it was a small college, Mennonite, German. And so he received that sentence mainly because of his ethnicity. So that's sort of a different look at prejudice and where it can come from.
Well, if there's no more, any other one want to share a story?
Well, I'll just share something really quick. Actually, it was probably before I was born. My father was a rabbi in Lexington, Kentucky, and you know, these are the sorts of stories that we grew up with, where he was having a meeting at the house with all his other clergy, being Kentucky, being around 1952, 53, they're all smoking. And my older brother, who was maybe 4 at the time, walked into the room and looked around and pointed at the one single African-American preacher and said, "Dad, that guy's different." And my father was, of course, sweating. And my brother said, "He's different. He's smoking a pipe." That's the difference he saw.
Yeah.
And he was smoking a pipe instead of cigarettes.
Good.
And this is just a story, one of many that I heard growing up, and it certainly affected where I am today.
That's great. I'll keep mine short, but when I was 8, my parents moved from the inner city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and bought this little plot of land just on the outskirts of the city, and suddenly we were thrust into a whole different world. And each morning, as I would go down the lane to catch the school bus, there would be a house down there. The white lady would raise up her window and yell at us, me and my siblings, while we were waiting for the bus, and we were intimidated. And I think that's a form of harassment for sure. And when we went back home, we were told, "Don't say anything, just walk down that lane and maintain your personal dignity. Don't say anything, and say the Lord's Prayer." And then they would say, "She's misguided. We're one people. There's nothing wrong with you. She's someone who is a victim of her own life circumstance." And then they would tell us not to retaliate. Not only don't say anything, but don't throw rocks or stones, just keep going. And then eventually my mother began to collect money for various charities, and would always stop at that house along with the many others around there. And they would this lady would always give money. And my mom had tremendous dignity, so she would walk up onto that porch unflinchingly and with great self-esteem about her. And the lady would always give that money, and repeatedly she would do this. And over time, it took quite a little while, but that family ended up having dinner at our table. And then that woman would often come down and have tea with my mom. And I learned something very profound, that I should not take this personally, that I realized that this was somebody who was not really well. And I would say over time, we were able to rehabilitate. So that was a powerful story from my childhood that my parents were engaged with.
Well, certainly we have been affected by, in our thinking today, by what has happened before in our lives. Let's go to the next question that I'd like to ask here, and it's with Reverend Carl Kirkendall and Sister Deborah Dirk. What is your reaction to this statement? Racial bias is something that children learn at home. If a child hears his or her parents make racial or prejudiced comments, he or she will be confused and will end up following the behavior model by their parents.
Deborah, would you like to go first?
Up to you.
Sam, I believe racism is a learned action. I believe that critical thinking begins at home. Whatever you're taught at home, you carry it with you pretty much wherever you go. Our kids, that's why we have to watch what we say and do in front of our kids, because our kids haven't learned how to be phony yet. What you see is what you get. Their eyes are like cameras. Their mind is a blank sheet, and whatever they see, they're recording it. And sooner or later, they're going to act it out. Whatever is being taught at home, good or bad, they're recording it. And I think Dr. Vanna tell you, being an elementary school teacher, that whenever a kid get in trouble, one of the first things the teacher wants to know is, how are things at home? What's going on at home that's affecting your behavior here? So yes, I think racism can be taught. I'm not saying it's taught at every home, but I've witnessed growing up in a mixed neighborhood that kids left alone get along just fine. I grew up in a white, Spanish, and Black neighborhood, and we would play softball together, baseball, basketball, walk to school together. One of my friends invited me over to his house, and his dad was off work. And when I went in, he asked me to step outside on the porch. And when I went outside, I heard him tell his son, he said, "Didn't I tell you not to bring that N-word over here, to leave him outside?" And so I mentioned this, I grew up in somewhat of a village, because I mentioned this incident to another white friend, Caucasian friend of mine. He went home and told his dad and mom, and little did I know, some years later, I learned that they went over to his house and they really straightened him out about the kids. So yes, I believe it do begin at home. But then, being a Baptist preacher, I know that when you train up a child in the way that he should go, yeah, but leave a child alone and he'll bring shame to his parents.
Amen.
Deborah.
It's obvious that it begins at home, but I think we have to be aware of the subtleties. If you go walking with your child down the street and you see a white man coming towards you and you don't have any reaction at all, and then when you see a Black man coming towards you and you pull your child in closer, that in and of itself gives a message: fear the Black man. I think that also we have to look at expressions from years gone by. Some are very overt, but some are a little bit, you have to think about them. Like, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Well, why is black equated with bad? You know, that's another sort of thing that you have to bring into your home. And today I was actually discussing with my son, and he told me that one of his very earliest memories is that we moved into married student housing when he was 2, and a little boy from Africa moved in just in on the same level, sharing the same balcony a year later. And when they had moved in, I sat my son down and I told him, look, here is a sheet of paper, put it against your skin. You're not really white. And they aren't really black. We're all just different shades of brown, so it doesn't matter. Go have fun. It happened that the two of them were playing on the balcony, and Sean ran into the house, and there was a screen door, and the screen door shut before Rashawn got there. When the screen door shut, Rashawn just backed up and started to head home with his head down. Sean went and got him, but then later I sat Sean down and I said, look, he has already experienced things with other kids where the door shutting meant he wasn't welcome. You didn't mean that. The door just happened to spring on, the spring just pulled the door shut. But he interpreted it that way. So you needed to go get him, and you need to be sensitive to children having had experiences before that mean you have to go out and say, no, come on, let's have fun. The door just happened to shut. That's something that stayed with him from a 3-year-old. That made it forward to this time. I think it's very important how we teach our children and that we make them sensitive to the notion that there are extra needs other children may have as a result of having been treated poorly.
So if this is all what you're saying, that it is true that it began at home, then what are we doing as individuals, as families, as parents? Any of you involved in? I think we were a little bit from Michelle about some of the things she was doing at the. How are we responding to that today? Are we really doing something within our synagogues and mosques and temples? And are we really trying to change this?
I believe there's also an issue of from where the child gets his ego, his reinforcement, his identity, because you can have parents who are just as nice as anyone else, but if the child develops a friendship and joins a group and gets his reinforcement from that group, and the group acts differently, that child will follow that. So whether it's the parent or another social group, wherever he gets his identity, his reinforcement, that's going to affect him. So in our churches and synagogues, Sam, to get back to you, we need to be that reinforcement. We need to be that influence over the kids, rather than, especially if the social groups are not healthy.
And there are always unhealthy social groups around for kids to adopt. It would be very rare that there would not be.
I think that one of the challenges is, though, as parents, sometimes it's not always the conversation that you have, but it's the subtle cues that your children pick up on. Sister Dirks made it very plain about pulling in when they see an African American or something like that. So I think that we do need to get positive reinforcement, but oftentimes it's the subtle things, because most people, this is my opinion, most people who have racial tendencies oftentimes don't even recognize that they have them, because it's been a part of their process of growing up for so long, they don't even realize it. If you don't realize it, then it's very easy to pass it on to your children because you don't see this as anything wrong. And I think those are the issues that happen in households is you don't see it as anything wrong, but actually you flip a switch in that child's mind. And if I make a child aware of something, they'll begin to look for that in people. And when they begin to look for that in people, it begins to be how they identify that particular person. So I don't think it's as critical as being overt as it is things that you're not aware of that begin to steer your children in a direction toward having some racial biases or racist tendencies that they might not even be aware of.
So if you're a parent or a grandparent or so, and let me ask this question. What is most important when a child asks a question about injustice, such as the kids in school make fun of my hair? Or would you first give your, oh no, if they do this, something like the kids in school make fun of my hair, would you first give your opinion, or would you first listen to the child's point of view? In other words, whose opinion is the most important in that household when such a statement is made? Are we just going to tell them right away, or is there a different way of doing it? And I'll add this to it because I'm going to ask Serinda and Michelle to respond to this question first. And if the parents and children are of color, is it understandable that parents may feel it necessary to help their children develop coping skills for dealing with racism and discrimination they will likely experience in today's world? That kind of has something to do with both these kind of questions together, because how do we respond when kids come home? Do we just tell them right away what they should do, or what do we do? Serinda, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I think it's important that, the child is heard, that the parent knows to ask pointed questions and, multiple questions to better understand what happened in school, for example. If Jimmy was one of your, what else was said, my child, to get to give me as much detail so I can understand the whole dynamic of the situation. I think opinions, oftentimes we offer opinions, and nobody wants to hear their child come home and say, oh, I've been bullied, somebody was making fun, or, that kind of situation. And certainly that would stir up some kind of emotion with the parent to, how dare somebody do this to my child? But I think the most important thing is to, approach it as a teaching moment. And, ask questions, what happened in this playground? What was the situation? What was said? How did you feel? To get a better understanding.
Is it possible?
But then,
is it possible that the child could also be teaching the parent?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, through that dialogue with your child, asking those questions kind of opens up for a dialogue to happen where, yeah, I've been surprised by some of the things that Arjun said, and Arjun is, for those of you who don't know, I'm of course East Indian, and so there's some complexities. We're describing the situation of school and things that happen at school and kids bullying kids about their appearance. But I can tell you, when I married Ray, there were some family members that had some choice words for me marrying out of, our traditional way of doing things. When Arjun was born, and me being from a Sikh family, I'm now Christian, but me being from a Sikh family and my husband being Christian, I had a few family members that asked, well, how are you going to raise your child? To which I responded that I think it's more important, it's absolutely important for me, first and foremost, to raise a good human being. And you know, it's amazing how quick people shut up when you respond with something like that. You know, they uh, certainly the people I was responding to didn't expect that, but I think for me, it really is, you know, whenever I've had a situation where Arjun has come home and told me, well, you know, so-and-so was saying this about me and asking questions. I said, well, how did you answer those questions? And maybe guide him a little about, you know, how he might respond if he feels attacked. You know, my goal is to in some way end this cycle where I, you know, am raising a child that is making friends, knows how to make friends, even with those that are attacking him. I mean, that's my goal, is to raise somebody that knows how to have a dialogue with people that are attacking him, but also, you know, be confident in himself so he knows how to protect himself. Um, and so that he knows that it's not right if somebody says something about his appearance or his religion or, you know, anything about him.
Michelle, any thoughts?
So I would say that, you know, definitely making sure that you have conversation. I kind of talk about it this way. Most kids kind of have what we call the Rugrat syndrome. And if you ever watch Rugrats, their parents always had a situation and the kids interpreted that situation very drastically different than what the parents saw it. And so I think it's crucial that we have conversation and that we let our young people know that as we have those conversations with them, as things go on, that our doors are open, that we're not going to be critical, that we are here to be a sounding board just as much as we are to help them work through having come to some solutions. But I think one of the things, because the question goes on to say about the whole idea of coping skills, one of the things we have to give kids are the skills to be able to transverse. So that code switching, there are some things that you can say, you know, among this group of people that you can't necessarily say among that group of people. There are some things that have to happen. As a Black woman, I have to code switch. There are some things that, you know, some days my hair is straight, some days my hair is not. So it's one, we have to help them to have confidence in who they are, knowing that there are people that are not going to like you for various reasons. They don't know you, but they have chosen not to like you because you look different, and different is always scary. And so when we have people that come out and will, you know, lash out, it's generally because there's a difference, and people are afraid of things that they don't understand. They're afraid of things that look different. They're afraid of being able to transfer into a place that is different. And so it's getting our kids to understand that, you know, just because a person talks about your hair, just because a person, you know, your hair may be straight, your hair may be natural, your hair may be, but understand that you are beautiful. And when the beautiful radiates out of you, then it will attract beauty. And so there are some people that you just have to say, you know what, I realize that there's something really sour going on inside of you, but I don't choose to be a part of that. And so when we can build our children's self-esteem, and when we can build their knowledge and their ability to understand who they are and the spirituality and the God that is on the inside of them, then they, not saying that it goes away, because even as adults, we still have issues with that, but it gives them the ability to be able to deal with that in a very different way.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I just want to say Naeem joined us.
Yeah, I'm good. Naeem Balut has joined us now, and the question we're going to ask is one I don't know if you have seen the questions or not, but I'm going to ask a question that we'd like for you to respond to if you feel okay about doing it. Naeem, he's the president of the Alul Bayt Islamic Center. I didn't probably pronounce that way, so why don't you pronounce it right now? What are you the president of?
Okay, first and foremost, I want to say peace to everybody. Apologize for being late. Went for a quick walk and completely forgot about the time. So sorry for jumping in too late. Yes, my name is Naeem Bamoud. I'm the president of the Ahlul Bayt Islamic Center. Been here since 1984 from Lebanon in the Middle East. Go ahead and ask the question. I can try to help answer that.
Okay, our next question. Today, we, our children, are flooded with stories about racial injustice and movements like Black Lives Matter. Has social media news stories sparked conversation in your home or with friends related to the issue of racial injustice?
It has tremendously. Our kids are young kids, or they're millennials, so they've been on their phone and their iPad going through stories after stories, going through the injustice that's being taking place against our brethren of a different race and different color. And they're starting to seeing this actually in a better picture now than before. Before you used to hear it maybe in the news that happened in the 60s or before that. Now it's coming to the front. You can see it immediately taking shape. They can evaluate this, they can understand it, and they can research and they can ask questions. Has this happened before? Was this been always like this? And it's a great opportunity actually for the younger ones to go back in history and see where this country come from, and have we actually moved the needle? Have we actually moved forward or not? So it did have create a lot of discussion between my sons and my son and my daughters on the issue, and do they see it or they don't see it? Unfortunately, we live in a community that's mostly white. They don't see it as much. When we used to live on a different area in Wichita was mostly a mix, we could see the difference there more. It did entice them to search, did attempt to get them to better understanding, which is great, and to appreciate what they have and to understand what the others are going through. This is not something that you can push, or you can shove in the corner or push under the carpet and say it doesn't exist. It's better that it's coming to light. It's better that it's being talked about, it's being discussed, it's being evaluated, being looked at, and not being just dismissed as just one case. It's not going to happen again. Apparently, it's happening almost on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. We have the news that's coming in, and it was actually surprising, and it was actually saddening when we heard part of the judgment that came out from for Breonna Taylor a couple of days ago, and the officer was found guilty of hitting the neighbor or the apartment in the neighbor, not actually shooting Breonna Taylor. So that tells you where the justice system is looking at which angle.
Any other thoughts? I want to respond to what he had to say.
Yeah, the question, deals with the news stories in the media, social media news stories, and has it sparked conversations. A couple of my kids are just 18. And so they're, as seniors in high school and then going off to college, they're really trying to feel out where they are. And in having those conversations with them, I'm learning that things are not the lines are not as I grew up. So that my son was very active in marching and demonstrating, etc. His best friend, African American woman, was talking like, if you're white, you're evil. If you're male, you're evil. And my son was saying, well, yeah, but that's not really the case. I understand where you're coming from, but, and he's best friends with her. These are discussions that he and I have a lot, and sometimes we argue, which I hate to do because he's a budding lawyer and I hate it. But he and I mean, I've learned a lot about what the issues are today, that they were not, which were not when I was in college or growing up. And it's great to let him work out these issues with the way things are being done now among young people, making these statements and statements with their feet as well as with their voice, and finding his place on where he can be. I know in general he's a good person, and I know in general his views, but some of these specifics he's still trying to figure out his way, and I am enjoying learning from him.
I would agree with Rabbi in the sense that there is a very different, this generation has a very different ideology about how to navigate the ideal of race and the ideal of sexuality and the ideal, all of these things that for us were very black and white, were very cut and dry, were very easy to put in boxes. You're either with me or you're not. Well, their thing is, I can disagree with you and still be with you. And so the ideology of how this generation processes that is very different. We know that race is a social construct. Deborah brought up earlier that, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just a different hue of brown, but that race is a social construct to bring division and to bring that ability for us to look at you, and because you don't look the same, then it gives me something to fight. And it's really not about that. And so I think that we really do have to have those conversations, but we also have to bring and have a that community. I think one of the things, you know, when we start to look at beyond tolerance, one of the things that happens is when we have dinner together, when we break bread together, when we have time of community, I am not going to fight the person, just like he said, you know, one of his best friends is a Black person. Well, he's not going to fight her. And so it's beginning to see that the thing that I love about you could be the thing that I love about this person over there, could be the thing that I love about this person over there. And it's not stereotyping everybody, because yes, there are bad people, but there are bad people in every color, in every nationality, in every race, in male, female. It doesn't matter. They're bad people because they have chosen to be bad people. It doesn't come in a certain skin color. It doesn't come in a certain nationality. It doesn't come in a certain church group, but it's understanding that we can't lump everybody together. And I have to be able to get to know you as an individual. And when I do, I either like or dislike you, but I'm going to dislike or dislike you because of you, not because of the whole stereotype.
Well, I see some heads nodding. Any other thoughts regarding that, or else we're going to go to another question. And I think that Frida, I may have asked you to respond to this question as well as Rabbi.
Yeah.
And this is the question: when racism becomes a topic of discussion at home, how can we as parents or grandparents bring clarity to misinformation, misconceptions related to certain ethnic communities and movements, such as the Black Lives Matter?
Well, I just wanted you guys to know that racism is real. It is alive and well in America. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Oh, you heard me? That, like I said, racism is alive and well in America. And as regards you said about the Black Lives Matter, it's not that as being a Black person, when they're saying that all lives matter, but Black lives matter because of the injustices that are being done to Black people in America today. You know, that what we have to deal with as being, you know, Black people, and what we have to tell our sons and daughters to be careful once they leave our homes, you know. So we have to be careful, and when we want them to be careful and watchful with what's going on in the world, what's going on around them. And we want, and me as a person, I was brought up to treat people the way they wanted to, you know, you want to be treated the way you want to treat someone else. Yes, that's how I was brought up. You know, you treat people with respect, you know, no matter who they are. And as Michelle Van was saying, I lost my thought, about when you treat people with respect, you know, no matter who they are. Ooh, I done lost my thought.
Mhm.
Oh, but you don't want to allow the actions of the others to dictate how you respond to what they're doing. You know, you want to be free, you know, with whatever you're doing. And that's all I have to
Yeah,
say.
the great line that's being used a lot is regarding Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
If your wife says, "Do you love me?" and you answer, "Yes, I love everybody,"
Right.
it's true, but it's not the answer she wants to hear.
Absolutely.
Correct.
You know.
It's Black Lives Matter too. That's what they're saying.
Yeah,
All lives
yeah.
matter. And we all love, you know, like I love everyone in this panel. I don't know you, but I love you, you know, because you're a human being.
Yeah.
But Black Lives, but to me, I mean, I wasn't there when they came up with this movement, but they should have added Black Lives Matter too. They should have added that as well, because all the injustices that are being done to people of color. I mean, you may or may not agree with that, but that's my take on it, you know, that all, you know, to me, all lives matter, not just that one race. We all matter, but I mean, as you watching TV and watching and listening to the news of what's being happening, you know, that's why, to me, I said Black Lives Matter too, you know, because of the injustices that are being done to people of color.
And when it comes to how do you talk about this with your kids, you know, really the answer is it depends on their age. I mean,
Right.
I've taught about the Holocaust, which is a horrible thing to try to describe,
Right.
to high school kids, to middle school kids, to elementary school kids, and even younger. And you have to talk about it in a different way.
Correct.
And so it depends on the age of the child, and it depends on your relationship with them. I used to teach preschool, and years ago, and I remember one time I was handing them their lunch, and one kid got 4 French fries instead of 5, and he was just so angry. And I wasn't thinking as a 5-year-old, so I just basically I took one of his French fries and I broke it in half. I said, "Now you have 5." And you know, he knew he got screwed, but he didn't know really how to explain it. I wasn't thinking like he was. So when you explain this, you have to be able to relate to the child. You have to be able to explain it the way so the child can understand it. Also, I think you need to be careful about over-explaining.
Right.
Because it may be you may go off on all these tangents and give all the explanation. I mean, I remember describing the basis of some of the stereotypes about Jews, and realizing that here I am giving a 4,000-year history lesson when they really didn't want to hear all that stuff. They just needed a simple answer, the elevator talk, as it were. And the third thing I would say about this is books. Books are helpful. I just heard about a book. I hadn't heard of it before, called Stamped. It's Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. It's for middle schoolers. And I know that there's the middle school in Andover is bringing the author in to talk to the kids. If you have books that the kids can read and talk about with the parents, a lot of times these authors can explain it a lot better than you, and you can share the learning experience with the child. Those are my 3 points to that question. I'll shut up.
Right.
I think one of the things that we have to do, especially, I agree with everybody, is concerning discussions with parents, grandparents, or whatever. I mean, I think they need to be very courageous conversations.
Right.
Sometimes we like the sugarcoat things,
Sure.
and I think we end up doing a disservice when we do that. I think that we need to be open and honest about racism and how it affects people, and have the courage to stand up against somebody who you might consider a friend who is doing something that is racist in their conversation. And a lot of people don't do that. When, you know, you're sitting around the dinner table and somebody cracks that joke or whatever, and in your heart you say that's not right. But because of the peer pressure of the group, we often remain silent. And I think this is one of the ways coming as a person of color, this is one of the ways that people who are Caucasian or whatever can be most helpful in this challenging times, is have the courage to speak up, because you will be at a conversation that I will never hear. And in that moment, you have opportunity to bring correctness if you choose to do that. And so we have to have people. I was in a dialogue and somebody asked me, they said, well, Pastor Van, as a white Caucasian male, how can I help? How can I support? And I told him the same thing. You have to be my voice in a conversation that I will never be involved in, because you will have opportunity to bring correctness. Do you have the courage to speak up at that particular moment? Or will the pressure of your friend group, those relationships that you don't want to necessarily ruffle the feathers, cause you to be quiet? And that's where it's real challenging if we're going to do something about conversations that need to be held at dinner tables and with children and all of that. Do we have the courage to actually speak up?
And your children are watching whether you do speak up. It is so important to have the courage to say nicely, politely. You know, I think we've wandered into an area where I have to disagree with you, or I don't think that that is really appropriate for dinner table conversation. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can nicely and politely say, but your children, your grandchildren, they are watching. And if you don't speak up, how can you expect them in the future to have the wherewithal to speak up? It's so important that we remember that we are an example and we're the model that they're going to be looking at, whether we think it's right or not. They may know we don't think that's right. They may know we think that that guy is wrong in cracking that joke. But if we don't say anything, well, they're learning not to say anything. It's a very harsh lesson in some ways for parents and grandparents, but it is really important for our children. The other thing I wanted to say is on Black Lives Matter. When somebody says we have to save the rainforest, nobody insists that we have to save all trees. You don't have to say that. But when you say Black Lives Matter, well, all lives matter. Yes, they do, but we shouldn't have to say that, just as we don't approach a rainforest program with we have to save all trees.
Clearly, all things are not equal.
Sure.
Black Lives Matter is a response to the fact, the reality over centuries that they have not mattered. So it just doesn't make sense that people would take issue with somehow it's threatening, because, you know, when you're used to having it all be about you, then it's a difficult pill to swallow when you say your life. This is not an equal playing field here. And I think
It hasn't been for years.
No, I think that's part of the challenge, that we have to educate people. We have to actually be in relationship with people who have those thoughts. I think it behooves us to reach out to those kind of people.
And Tony, on that very thing, there are some people that just don't want to know, don't want to be educated.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've, you know, stupid of me, but I've caught myself making comments on Facebook to some people, encouraging them to pick up certain books and read them, like The New Jim Crow, for example,
Yes.
and websites that provide information as to, you know, why is it that we have a movement like this, and why, you know, why people get upset when you're saying in response to that all lives matter. And some people, they don't want to know, they don't care. I've had some really rude comments made in in response to some of my comments when I say read these books, and it's polite. I'm
Right.
not being rude, I'm not name calling, I don't do that, but it really is just to pick up these books. You might learn something about why this exists, why people are taking to the streets and protesting. So
And it says a lot about just how out of touch we are because we're not connected to each other.
There is a new book that has just come out that is So You Want to Talk About the Race Issue.
Yeah,
And it is really excellent.
great.
Reverend Kirkendall, you want to say something?
Yeah, I did want to say something. Now, someone already made this comment, said that we should never underestimate the intelligence of a kid. My two grandkids were here and they were discussing the Black Lives Matter issue, and they're at 14 and 16 years old, I believe. I got a radical grandson, both of them same brother, same mother and father, but totally different in some issues. My grandson's radical, he mentioned Black Lives Matter. My other grandson's more intellectual. He said, well, if it mattered, then why do we have so much black on black crime, black people, black men killing each other? I thought I was going to have to intervene, but my other grandson comes back and said, yeah, black on black crime is wrong. But whenever a young black man gets caught shooting or killing another black man, he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. But whenever a white officer shoot a black man in the street, chances are he's going to get paid vacation and also restored back to his usual position. So black lives do matter. In that instance, someone already said it's been an uneven playing field for years. And so we have to put the light on black lives as far as it's concerned facing white racism.
Thank you.
And I think we have to address, issues like that. The stereotypes and those misconceptions of things like black on black crime. You kill the people, you are in confrontation with the people that you live by. If I live by black people, then I'm in confrontation with black people. If I live by white people, then I'm in confrontation with white people. So I think, we have these, again, we go back to those things that we say. I think Deborah brought up the whole idea that we have these things like, call the kettle black or black, we're most things that are equated to black are not good. And so when we start to really think about those things, those are things that we have to address. So while we say, while we're looking at these little things, it's the little tiny things that build up in our minds that make us believe that these things are wrong. When when we step into the elevator and the little lady pulls her purse a little closer because I happen to be black and we're the only two people in this elevator. Girl, what you holding your purse for? I got money too. I mean, so it's all of those kinds of things that we began to have to really break down for our kids. I agree with Pastor Kirkendall. We have to have them, let them have those conversations because they truly do begin to work through it if we'll let them talk about it. But every now and then we throw in a question. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? Because we need to be able to push them so that when they get out into the community, they have intelligent conversation that they can put in to any conversation that comes up.
I think like Surinder said, it's amazing, or maybe it was Tony, it's amazing that you have to defend a statement like Black Lives Matter. I think Deborah said it too. It's amazing to me that I can't make a statement, Black Lives Matter, without your rebuttal being all lives matter. I mean, in essence, what you're saying is you're diluting the fact that Black Lives Matter to the point where, well, everybody's lives matter. No, everybody ain't getting killed. Everybody hasn't experienced this level of racism. And the Black Lives Matter is just I personally don't agree with a lot of stuff that the original intent of the organization does, but I understand that sometimes it requires a champion that's willing to go out front and face the giant so that the rest of us can come in back behind that and clean that thing up. But it really is a source of irritation that if I say Black Lives Matter, that I now have to defend this statement. I'm simply saying that people of color matter just as much as anybody else.
And I think that's part of the problem that you're having is that the white are still having the issue of superiority complex. They cannot get to the point and grasp the idea that the black lives matter as much as the white life. And that's what they're having a problem with, man. That's what the issue is. Why do you have to mention black lives? Why not say everybody matters? Well, yes, it does everybody, but not everybody being treated the same way. Not everybody is being questioned the same way. Not everybody being stopped at the stop sign the same way. That's why you have to bring it up. So you have to, this idea of you being superior to me because of your race and your color, that has to be demolished. That has to be erased. Then then you can say everybody, then you can say all lives matter. Until that thing is out of people's head, you have to mention it. You have to say, yes, it does matter too. Yeah, it had because the black have been under oppression. They have been unjustly treated. And that's why it does matter.
That's right.
And that's what white people are going through, a new learning process at this moment in time. There is a sense among a lot of white folks that after the civil rights movement and a few years beyond, now everyone is equal. So why are African Americans saying, you know, Black Lives Matter? Well, we're all equal. We're all the same. We all have the same opportunity. And there are a lot of people who are just now coming to grips with institutional racism. It's a new concept for a lot of people.
But that only happens if you are in a place where you have conversation with someone and really realize it. So in our situation, a lot of you know that we built a building. And so we're kind of in a redlined area. So, you know, getting finance was a difficult task. Building the building was a difficult task. And it was that we had a group of white people that came in and were helping on a regular basis. And it really was not until they were working with us on a daily basis that they began to really understand, oh, dang. Because in their mind, racism was over, just like you said. Oh, there's no racism. Everybody's, you know, you can go wherever you want to go. I see black people everywhere. I see, you know, the president used to be black. You know, we can't be racist. We elected him twice.
There you go.
You have to be careful how you say that, though. It's not that the president used to be black.
Right.
We used to have a black president.
Right.
Our president was not black before. Right.
And so the thing is they believed that everything was absolved once a black person became president, and they did not realize that it still was real until they had to every day walk beside us and see the things that were happening and experience the things that were happening till they began to say, racism might not be dead.
So I'm going to ask a question of Tony, and then the rest of you might want to respond to it as well. And we're running out of time. So, but Tony, I said to you before, and this, I think there's a dream that people have. Is a dream that all people of color are treated equally becoming closer to a reality? Is it becoming closer to a reality, or what do you think, Tony? And then the rest of you can respond to it if you want. But Tony, what do you think?
Sure. You know, at the end of slavery, you know, we had that wonderful moment called the period of the Reconstruction, and it only lasted 10 years. And then, but we did have that moment, and it seemed like, wow, we were going somewhere with this. And then we had, after Reconstruction, we had almost 100 years of Jim Crow, where they essentially was separate but equal, and the rising of the Ku Klux Klan and all kinds of just terrible stories. And I'm speaking right now about African Americans specifically. But then, you know, through hard work, you know, we got the Brown versus Board of Education. You know, I think that song, the national anthem for Black people, you know, James Weldon Johnson, we have come over a way that with tears have been watered, because for a moment, wow. And then there's this long period of this sad stuff, and it's really, really sad. And then we get Brown versus Board of Education. And then, you know, we see the suburbs going up because lots of people in the cities don't want to go to school with Black people. So just as we think we're getting somewhere, you know, we don't quite get where we want. Then we have the whole civil rights movement. And we get the Voting Rights Act, for which so many people died. But, you know, in 2013, the enforcement portion of the Voting Rights Act was taken away in those southern states where it was such a big problem. I remember when I was very young, what's the guy's name? George Wallace was running for president. And I think he only got 13% of the vote. So he didn't have a chance. But all that rhetoric and all that hate that he was spewing for me was very frightening. But in the interim, between then and now, droves of people of color came to this country. And on top of that, we got an African-American president. And that was just too much for this country to bear. And the answer was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump came with a race baiting agenda. And if you watch any of his rallies, you find him always talking about immigration and all those people down there, they're rapists and, you know, they're criminals and they're murderers. He's talking about people of color. Now, the demographics are such that in just a few decades, there are going to be more people of color in this country than there are going to be white people. And that's scary. That's really, really scary for a lot of white people because they don't feel in control. So I say we got Obama, but the answer to that was getting Trump. The problem is that as the demographics change, and they are changing, I think this may be the last gasp. I think this just may be the last gasp. I have a hopeful view about the future. I think we are stepping forward. I think I'm so impressed with Generation Z, the young kids. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who are reaching out. They are protesting. They are angry. And they too see their own victimization, having graduated from college with thousands of dollars and can't find a job. I mean, they're mad too. But these groups are coalescing. These young people are coalescing. And I think it's quite exciting. Now, will there be some steps backwards? Probably here. Yes, of course. But I do believe that we are moving forward. This may seem like a difficult moment now, but I do believe that as we move along, the vision for diversity and inclusion is going to take hold of our country as opposed to the vision of white supremacy, isolation, division. I think we're moving forward.
Didn't the Klan come as a reaction to Reconstruction? And so just like that, in reaction to, as you said, reaction to Obama comes Trump. I mean, yes, there. It seems like for every step forward, there's a step back. But I hope and I pray that it's for every 2 steps forward, there's a step back. So that we are slowly progressing towards that.
That's right. Time. That's exactly right. That's what I think. I agree with you. Yeah.
I just quickly want to say one of the first things I noticed when I came to this country, and I came here with my 6-year-old daughter, then 6-year-old daughter back in 1996. And when she started school and she would tell me about the Pledge of Allegiance they say every morning. Didn't think about it so much back then, but lately, this liberty and justice for all, just that piece of it. Yes. And, it's apparent that that's not the case still for so many people. So that's just something I'm more aware of when I see these stories of injustice where, Breonna Taylor, for example, George Floyd, and so many others.
Yes.
And then the injustice of, people not getting penalized how they should be to the fullest because of what they've done. clearly there isn't liberty and justice for all. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I'm very aware of that.
I think it always was an ideal rather than a description
Yeah.
of a reality.
Sure.
I think before, I agree that we are maybe perhaps moving closer, but I think there's going to be some incredibly trying and challenging times to get over this last hurdle. I'm not trying to speak negative about things, but it's probably going to get pretty ugly for a little while.
Yeah, and
There's
it's not
going
the
to be
last
some
hurdle
bloody
either.
noses.
And it's not the last hurdle either.
Right,
It's going
right.
to continue. Yeah.
Oh yes, but we're not going to stop.
You're only gonna get forward and higher. You're not gonna get any lower. It's not gonna get worse than this. It's only gonna get better from here on. You
That's
just
right.
have to keep the struggle, keep the movement,
Yes.
and don't look back.
Right.
They're gonna be a lot of dogs barking everywhere. You just have to keep on moving. Don't get dragged down. Don't get hesitated. Keep on moving. Keep on going.
We have to live
You
in
get to the promised land.
Yeah, that's right.
And
I
Dr.
think-
Van and Surinder, I don't think you're being pessimistic. I think you're being real in the comments that you made. You're looking at the reality of what we're facing. I don't know if you remember the old Virginia Slim commercial. You know, they invented the cigarette for the woman, and the lady said, "We come a long way, baby." Another woman come on and say, "Yeah, but we got a long way to go." I can address that to us. We come a long way, Black president and some different things, but yet we have a long way to go. And the rabbi is absolutely correct. This ain't the last hurdle. If you love, don't give up, and well doing.
Oh, thank you so much. We're about out of time. We can maybe make a minute or two yet, I think, and then we're 15 minutes over what we usually do. That says, I think, a lot of good about what we have done here today. We've heard some really wise words from so many of you. Anyone like to have a closing statement that you would want us to have, or Tony, you have anything that you want a statement or a little song you'd like to sing for us to send us off?
I would like to say that one day my hope is that hate and prejudice will be eradicated.
Absolutely, Frida.
Yeah, we would just take people for who they are. We will respect people for who they are and wherever they come from.
Correct. It's good to remember.
Yeah,
We all came from the same father and the same mother.
this is true. He created us all.
That's right.
We came from the same father and the same mother. It's time for us to stop looking at each other from different views and remember where we came from.
That's right. That's right.
And Sam, I believe that as we go forward, that we need some sound Mexicans on both sides of the fence, Black and white, that goes beyond tolerance. And then we could live up to the words that Tony was saying, break bread together.
There you go.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, and we do need that.
Yes.
Okay, I think we will conclude unless we'll adjourn for now. I just have to say again, thank you so much. And some of us, I'm almost 80 years old, so I've experienced a lot of things throughout my life. It's very discouraging at times for me, but tonight was not a discouraging evening. It was very exciting to hear what so many of you had to say. And thank you, Tony, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Frida,
Thanks,
Tony, it's a
everyone.
pleasure meeting you guys.
Yes,
You
it's a
guys
pleasure meeting
Nice to
you.
meet you
have
too.
a
See you
blessed
guys in
evening.
Wichita.
Yes,
God bless
enjoy
you.
your week. Have a good week.
I'm going to find you guys in
And
Wichita.
if any of you have another theme, I'd like to do another one of these in about a month. We usually do one a month. If you have a theme or something that we want to discuss, please send it to me, okay?
Okay.
Because right now we don't know what the next theme will be. You could help us with that. All right, thank you and goodbye for now.
God
Thanks,
bless.
everyone.
So long.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.